Clearly, those who are closely involved with this Epstein question are looking to the UK and saying, actually, there is a great deal of political turmoil there, and we're not necessarily seeing the same in the US.
Now, every Tuesday, we head to the US to find out what's happening in Washington, where Lara Spirit is our woman bestriding the corridors of power. Hello, Lara.
Hi, Hugo.
Thanks for being with us. Let's talk Epstein stuff. Ghislaine Maxwell appeared via a video link in front of the US House Oversight Committee yesterday. She's been accused of bargaining for a pardon after refusing to answer questions without the promise of clemency from the president. Both Democrats and Republicans on the committee have expressed anger at her lack of cooperation. But as the scandal continues to unravel there, Westminster is, of course, facing its own political drama at the same time over here. It's quite rare to have parallels with the chaos of US and UK governments. Is one of these driving the other? Are they noticing our scandal over there?
They are noticing our scandal. Sometimes they are saying that it's not just the UK, but Europe who are moving to have some accountability over the latest releases in the Epstein files. This case made that there are some in France, for example, the former French culture minister Jack Lang in Norway, and an investigation in Poland into whether Epstein Russian spies. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I lost you just for a second.
Sorry. Okay. I was just saying that there have been some in the US, in Washington specifically, who are marveling at the fact that there have been a number of individuals in Europe specifically who have been held accountable, and that perhaps nowhere is that more true than in the UK, particularly with, of course, Peter Mandelson and the current scandal. So we had yesterday, for example, Ro Khanna, who is a senior Democrat and has been at the forefront of this push to see more released in the Epstein files and those held account who are responsible for crimes, saying that Howard Lutnick, who is the Commerce Secretary, who said that he had severed ties with Epstein, but there are questions about some emails that emerged after the initial conviction. He said that Lutnick should be out of the cabinet, and he said, "I know Keir Starmer, I was excited when he won, and yet I believe he needs to be held accountable with what's happened with Mandelson." He later added, "In our country, we have not had that reckoning." So clearly those who are closely involved with this Epstein question are looking to the UK and saying, actually, there is a great deal of political turmoil there, and we're not necessarily seeing the same in the US. We should say that there have been some individuals in the US. You think about the former Harvard University President Larry Summers, who stepped away from public life, for example, following the release of some email exchanges, and also Brad Karp last week, who resigned as chairman of one of the country's biggest law firms, Paul Wise. So there are some who are clearly facing a great deal of accountability at the moment. But the question politically, of course, is whether or not the DOJ was right to say that the case was now closed. And there are lawmakers who are going into the DOJ now, looking at unredacted files and saying perhaps there should be some more action taken on this point now.
I mean, what about Trump himself? Because he's said several times, you know what, I'm in the clear, I'm totally cleared here. But he has named an awful lot in the files. And Keir Starmer, who some people think is dangling by a thread, is not named. Dangling by a thread is not named at all in the files. Is there wariness in the White House, or do they think they've just battered this one away?
I think at this point they would say, look, we have released millions of files, and there has been a great deal of transparency now in this case, those previous redactions I mentioned notwithstanding, and that people are able to look through these and see for themselves whether or not they think that Trump is culpable for anything at all. Of course, they are saying that he has been totally exonerated. He is saying that he has been totally exonerated. He has been, slightly sensitive when he was asked, not about his own appearance in the files, but about Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary's appearance in the files by, of course, Caitlin Collins last week in the White House. He retorted that she didn't smile and attacked her, verbally about this kind of question, clearly bristling at the inquiry. So I think certainly it's not something that he's necessarily super comfortable with. And I think his reaction is very telling to the fact that the Clintons have been in this kind of big battle over whether or not they're going to appear before the Oversight Committee. You might expect President Trump to be very in favor of that, but actually he said that he hated to see it when he was asked about this. He was even complimentary of Hillary Clinton, of course, his 2016 running mate last week, when asked about this, praising her skills and saying that, he thought Bill Clinton could perhaps take it, but he clearly did not necessarily feel comfortable with the fact that they were being hauled in front of the committee. And I think that is quite an interesting vignette of this wider question.
And look, turning to Ghislaine Maxwell, then her appearance in front of the committee yesterday. What do we think her strategy was there? The way she handled that, the way she basically said that she wasn't going to answer questions without the promise of clemency. Is that a kind of blackmail, or what do we think that is?
I mean, I think that you can see how it makes sense from her perspective. And her lawyer was very open about that, saying that if you really want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there's a straightforward path. She's prepared to speak fully and honestly, but she does need to be granted clemency by President Trump first. So at this point, we're not going to hear that much further from her. Obviously, we have had very extensive interview audio footage released between her and Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, where she goes into some detail about this. Of course, very different from appearing in front of a committee like this and doing so perhaps, in public. Of course, Coma has released some, images and footage of her pleading the fifth yesterday, and he is not going to stop looking into this, as we've seen with the question of Clinton's and other individuals too. And he's not, I should say, ruled out subpoenaing Howard, the Commerce Secretary, either. So this is not going away.
Now it's time for the most Trumpian moment of the week.
Thank you very much. This is truly one of the great honors of my life.
What have you got for us, Lara?
So I did come up with this before I opened Truth Social this morning and saw that Trump was threatening to cancel ice hockey in Canada. But this is not necessarily massively dissimilar, which is that you'll remember that the White House froze about $16 billion of funding for a New York project in October. That was a big bridge project that was going to build 9 miles of passenger railway track under the Hudson River. Now that was frozen. Russell Vought, the White House budget director, saying that was to ensure that it wouldn't be spent on unconstitutional DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion projects. Now, some Democrats have been pushing, as you would imagine, to release this funding and this project already beset by delays for a great deal of time and had already started by the time this was frozen. So it was seen as very important that they were able to unlock these funds. And we learned that Trump had said to Chuck Schumer, who is, of course, the Senate minority leader, the most senior Democrat in the Senate, that he'd be happy to unlock those multiple billions of funds for this massive infrastructure project if Schumer was happy to agree to renaming both Penn Station, that massive railway station in New York, and Washington Dulles Airport, the big international airport in DC, after him. And it was reported that Schumer said, unsurprisingly, no to this. As it happens, a judge actually said that the Trump administration couldn't block these funds pending some future agreements on the case on Friday. But even so, I think this is a pretty Trumpian moment. And I say so because you'll know that Trump is very fond of seeing his name on particular things. So we've seen, for example, the board of the Kennedy Center that we should say is handpicked by him, which had moved to rename that great preeminent cultural institution, the Trump Kennedy Center. That's pending a legal challenge by a Democrat, so we won't get into that. But there's also seen the U.S. Institute of Peace renamed the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. We've seen new guided missile warships named after Trump. We've obviously heard mention of Trump accounts, those baby savings accounts, Trump gold cards, proposed investment media visa. So there are quite a number of things that Trump is hoping to do to kind of make sure that his name outlasts perhaps his second term. And this latest one, I think, was perhaps the most audacious gambit in that direction.
Well, maybe they could just chisel the face off the Statue of Liberty and give her his instead. Finally, it's time for Westminster versus Washington, two places at the beating heart of democracy, with Lara, of course, being experienced in both. But which is best? This week, we're comparing sporting events. Lara, were you watching the Super Bowl?
I did manage to watch quite a bit of Super Bowl. I didn't understand any of it at all, but I did watch it. Did you?
No. How does it compare to, say, I don't know, the World Cup, the FA Cup? Does it have the same influence? Does it have more influence? Is it more important as a cultural event? Is it better?
I think it is massively important here. And I do also think that it's more, I would say that if you're not interested in any of these massive sporting events in the US, you do find yourself roped into social events that mark them. Whereas it feels like in the UK, if you're not interested in football, you don't necessarily end up at a party watching the FA Cup final unless perhaps your very good friend drags you along. Here it's very much, if the Super Bowl is on, you've been invited to one, if not a number of different events. You're bringing along a particular dish and you're all watching it together. And there's also a sense that the sport is and I hope this isn't an offensive thing to say, somewhat peripheral to the experience of watching it for many people. So the Super Bowl halftime show, as you all know, and this has been deeply reported, big cultural and in some senses controversial event this year with Bad Bunny performing. That was a massively highly anticipated moment, for many more highly anticipated than the game itself. Some people here consider the very adverts in the Super Bowl to be a cultural phenomena as well, which I think Brits would maybe bristle at. So they are very different in that respect. And in general, these kind of halftime shows and the entertainment that you see during the games is really key to the American sporting experience in a way that I just haven't found it to be in the UK. I went to see some basketball in Washington last week. The Wizards playing the Knicks. The Wizards are not a massively popular team and nor a particularly esteemed one. And basically everybody there was a New York Knicks fan, even though it was in Washington. And I was struck by how many different breaks there were with different random entertainment events on, and it was seen that the people were sort of not necessarily even that interested in basketball itself.
So verdict then, Lara, basically sport worse, cultural event better, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's take that. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That is Lara Spirit, our Washington correspondent, speaking to us as ever from Washington.